When you were born, you were the purest form that you will ever be. A blank sheet of paper. No beliefs, no opinions, no language, no religion or values, nothing. From the moment you were born, everything you have come to believe was imposed on you. I mean, we didn't even get to choose our own name. You were taught what rules to follow, what's right and what's wrong. Your parents basically shaped your mind through repetition until their beliefs became yours. But it wasn't just your parents. It was your teacher, your siblings, your family, and even the guy on TV. Now it's your friends, the news, social media, all fighting for your attention to try and shape your reality with their version of the truth. But what is the truth? You see, we learn the truth by agreeing with what we're told. Your truth will probably be very different from mine. Perception of reality is a very subjective experience. But what we tend to agree on, at least on a large scale, is science because of the overwhelming evidence of the truth. But as children, we question everything to the point where we're probably driving our parents insane. At least I did. Because we're all born with the same internal compass, all searching for the truth. We are curious by nature. The problem is, as kids, we cannot tell what's right and what's wrong. This is what other authority figures tells us. We rely on their truth. So we just accept the answers we're given as facts. But in reality, most of the things that we're told are actually just opinions or beliefs disguised as truth. So many of them we just made our own, never questioning them again. And if we did question things, we were punished, learning to never question authority again. It was kind of seen as a negative behavior if you were to ask why in class. For me, I don't know what caused it, but I've always had this insatiable curiosity, a deep desire to understand why. And while this has brought me a great deal of pain growing up and throughout my life, I have come to see it as actually one of the greatest gifts that I have received. The ability to ask why. Now, children are essentially trained, tamed, and domesticated much like dogs. We're still using this ancient but effective system of punishment and reward. Follow the rules and you will be rewarded with love and approval. Break them and you will be punished. This is what we're taught. So you adapt, you comply, you play by the rules so that you avoid the pain. And of course, to get that much desired validation of others, primarily from your parents, right? This makes you dependent on the approval of others instead of having intrinsic motivation. This is the paradox of good intentions from your parents, because what it really does is that it trains you to live your life through fear and desire. The fear of rejection and punishment, and the desire to be liked and accepted, to basically try and fit you into this shoebox of social norms and rules so you feel like you belong, which is great, I guess. But in order to survive this new reality of yours, you have to pretend, right? To act like you're someone you're really not. So you start hiding your true self deep inside so that you can fit in, so that you can be accepted by the others in order to feel good enough. And the consequence of that is that you keep your head down, you blend in, and try not to stand out at all. And you make sure to never voice your real, authentic opinion unless someone else actually has the courage to voice theirs, which, if it's in alignment with yours, you will state yours afterwards, right? Because what if they reject the real you? What if being authentic makes you look weird? What if people don't accept this version of you? I think, at least looking at my own experience, the worst possible thing for a teenager to experience is being the isolated weirdo, isolated from the group of the others. And yeah, they're basically left on their own to bear the unbearable weight of rejection alone. Ultimately, this whether you're a part of the group pretending or you're outside the group, also kind of pretending because you want to be a part of the group, what happens is that you will feel misunderstood because you're trying to become or be a person that you're really not. So you do what everyone else is doing because it's easier and it feels safe. This is the type of behavior that is rewarded in society. So over time, you become this perfect replica of what the world wants you to be, not because it's who you are, but because it's what you've been taught to be. All your natural, pure, and beautiful qualities like curiosity, creativity, and independence are slowly and effectively suppressed. The very things that makes you, you. Curiosity fades when we're giving the answers and not the space to explore. Creativity dies under the weight of strict rules, and independence declines as choices are made for us, forcing us to rely on the validation of others in order to make us feel secure. All of this is designed to program you to be like everyone else, making you absolutely perfect, to follow orders instead of leading and inspiring others. Do this and don't do that. All this programming is so fucking powerful that as we grow older, we don't even need others to regulate ourselves. No, in fact, we begin to regulate ourselves, following the same rules we were taught. But as kids, and I'm sure you have experienced this as well, something deep inside us is fighting back against this. We start rebelling, not because we're necessarily defiant, but because deep down, we're trying to protect the very freedom that is being suppressed. But kids are weak, so we lose that battle, of course. Our belief system becomes the very law we live by, dictating how we think, behave, and judge. But with laws, there needs to be a judge. As children, that judge is usually our parents or teachers. As adults, it becomes this inner voice of ours. And this inner voice never shuts up. This inner voice of ours judges everything that we do and everything around us. Anything that goes against the laws of your belief system will be judged either consciously or unconsciously. This inner critic is running all the time, deciding whether you're guilty or this person is guilty and deserves punishment. And it never stops. Day after day after day, this inner critic of ours is raging war in our minds. It punishes us with emotions like guilt, shame, fear, and blame. All tools to keep you in line with your beliefs that you didn't even choose in the first place. This is why you suffer so much. No one can hurt you as much as your own thoughts. But with a judge, there needs to be a victim, right? The victim carries all the weight of this emotional punishment, always feeling like it's never really good enough. It tells itself stories like, I deserve this. And it even finds valid evidence for the inner critic harsh judgment. And the inner critic is like, yeah, see, that's what I said. The thing is, you're both the judge and the victim. And this internal dialogue, if you pay attention, is playing out every single day. Like, why didn't I do the things that I said I would? I am not good enough. I don't deserve this. I am not worthy. I am ugly. I am skinny. I am lazy. Like the list of critiques and judgments that you put yourself through is astronomical and completely unnecessary if you think about it. It's just unnecessary suffering that you're putting yourself through on a daily basis. And you know, the spectrum of how much people do this is obviously different from person to person. But I can say on a personal note that my inner voice is fucking constant. And it wasn't until like a lot of years ago that I started to pay attention to this, but I've spent the last 9 years trying to reprogram all this domestication that we've gone through, all based on beliefs that you never chose Why do we accept this? Well, because breaking one of those beliefs, and you have a lot of beliefs, right? Breaking just one of them feels extremely painful and uncomfortable to go against. You have been conditioned to stay in the box, to comply, to fit in, so that you can feel like you belong and feel safe. Stepping outside that box, you risk rejection and punishment, and that very fear keeps you stuck. Even if those beliefs of yours are fundamentally wrong, they still feel true. This creates an endless cycle, and not a good one. The inner critic of yours judges, the victim suffers, and then we conform to avoid the pain and punishment. But really, all we want is truth and justice. But if that's the case, why do we punish ourselves for the same mistake over and over and over and over again? How many times do you have to punish yourself for the same mistake in your mind? Like, how many times do you judge yourself, find yourself guilty, and then punish yourself? One reminder of a mistake that you have already punished yourself for, whether from a friend, a family member, social media, or your girlfriend, or even yourself, is all it takes to go through the same feedback loop from hell once again. One of the reasons we suffer so much is because we believe lies that is stored in our minds as truths. Especially with things like social media and the internet, we're constantly living in a state of lack, always feeling behind and trying to chase that next external thing to fill the void inside. So we search for solutions, right, to our problems in our external world because that's all we were really taught. Seeking solutions like validation, possessions, experiences, all trying to fill this internal void that we all feel. But the thing is, you cannot change an internal problem with an external solution. The void that you feel will not be fixed with pleasure, knowledge, or even people. Now, you might think that your biggest fear is death, but I think, and this is just my personal opinion, looking at myself, if you take a good look at yourself, the reality is your biggest fear is expressing the real, authentic you. Because what if people don't like this new, authentic you? We've been taught so much that we need to hide and blend in to avoid rejection, right? Because rejection hurts, to fit in someone else's box of good enough. But the thing is, it's never enough. Not only do we try and live up to everyone else's expectations, but we also try and meet the impossible ideal that we set for ourselves. Now, nothing is inherently wrong with having standards, but there's something wrong with punishing yourself for not being perfect. And we demand perfection, right? An ideal that we will never truly reach. This creates the perfect loop of disappointment, shame, and guilt, and is effectively just self-rejection at its core. We literally punish ourselves for being human, for not living up to a lie. We even get to the point of self-abuse just to please others and feel like we belong. Doing drugs, distractions, meaningless pursuits of pleasures that is all short-lived. And we all do it to avoid rejection and the voice of the inner critic, judgment. And this is a hard truth that might be real for some of you and for some not. But in your life, no one has probably abused you more than you have abused yourself. The level of self-abuse you tolerate with yourself determines the level of abuse that you will tolerate from others. This is why people stay in toxic relationships, because on some level they believe that they deserve it or that it's their fault. Self-abuse comes from self-rejection, and self-rejection comes from chasing an ideal of perfection. But it's not all bad, of course. When you were a child, you were good enough. And you were basically useless in terms of contributing to society, but you were still good enough. The good news is that the fact that we have been programmed to believe something means that we can reprogram that same belief system of ours. You don't need to be a victim if you don't want to be a victim. You don't need to judge yourself or others for that matter. It's all in your head. You can unlearn the lies, the beliefs that fundamentally don't serve you anymore. You can rewrite your beliefs and quiet the inner critic of yours with compassion. And you can stop living for others and start living for yourself so that you can be there for others. Now, I am not saying that you should live a life driven by greed and ego. In fact, I actually think that we live our greatest life and do our greatest work when we try and serve and contribute to others. But it should come from a place of genuine curiosity and a genuine desire to make the world a better place, not because you feel like you should do it, but because you want to do it. You cannot truly give out of yourself if you're neglecting yourself in the first place. You're giving out things that you don't have. Because the truth isn't out there. It's always been inside you. I'm not saying to not follow the rules. I'm just saying maybe don't follow the stupid ones. It's long overdue to start self-accepting and stop self-abusing yourself for something that is completely unnecessary. Letting go of old programming and belief that is causing you emotional harm will be one of the best things that you can ever do in your life. I think also from reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, one thing I learned that he tells a lot about is living a life of integrity, living in alignment with who you truly are. You're not behind, you're not broken, and you're not perfect. You have just been carrying the weight of old beliefs that doesn't serve you anymore. They might have served you in a particular time in your life, but I'm sure they don't serve you anymore. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to this part in the video. Just remember, they weren't truly yours to begin with. You only feel behind because you're comparing yourself with others. Why? Because their progress makes you doubt yourself, right? This is why there's a quote called, "The comparison is the thief of joy." This is why social media is so toxic. If this is how you use that and you're not careful with, scrolling through your feed, because it's like an unconscious thing that's going on that you're not really paying attention to, but it's something going on, with the voices and the dialogue that I talked about in this video. But without comparison, who are you behind? No one. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Remember, you're human. You're just a monkey on a rock in space. Don't take your life so seriously. The very fact that you're alive and you're watching this video of me speaking on a device is a miracle in itself. You're living in the greatest time in history to do whatever you want. Life is, by definition, valuable on its own, and that means just by existing, you are good enough. Now, all of the things that I've told you in this video is not going to be easy. It's probably going to be one of the hardest things that you will ever do. But I can promise you this much. If you actually commit to being self-aware and try to pay attention to this internal dialogue of yours, where you judge yourself or others and then you punish yourself with shame, guilt, and fear and all these negative emotions. The more aware you can be of these feedback loop, the more likely you are to be able to break free of them. And honestly, I should make a complete video just detailing how to actually do that, because I can't go through that in this video alone. It's such an in-depth topic that should be unfolded by its own. But anyways, all you can ever do and ever should is just do your best. This will vary from day to day, but if you keep showing up and you trust the process, I'm sure that you will find your way. At least that's what I'm gonna do.